Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to round 3 of the RaceFace.Pro Le Mans Ultimate Championship Season 2, and we're at the beautiful Spa-Francorchamps. But it is a little bit wet out there, and I have got my raincoat next to me. Much like next to me is the one, the only, Cameron de Bastos. Cameron, welcome to Spa, and hopefully you went and parked your boat outside.
Good evening, Stephen. Good evening, everybody out in the grandstands. Yeah, it was quite a road trip to get all the way up here into the mountains to really get into the commentary box here. I just took a look out the window and it is absolutely soaked out there. The drivers are definitely going to struggle in order to keep the car sorted. Last week we spoke about having to get the car set up for the long straights and maybe the twisty technical middle sector. That's gone out the window. The drivers now have to focus on just staying alive during this very wet race. And it's going to be difficult for some because they haven't really experienced wet weather racing before.
Well, this is it. It's going to be a challenge because it's pouring down there. And let's actually head down to the grid, take a look as they're underway for their first set of qualifying. Well, as the cars make their way out, we did talk about the wet, and there is a little bit of the water coming off the rear wheels of our GT3s. But you can see how the rain did come down. It did make life a little bit havoc, but it has lightened up at least. But that makes it ever so deceptive, especially in warm weather conditions. You think that you have more grip just because, well, it's not raining, but yet that water on the surface becomes a problem.
And absolutely, that little bit of wetness on the track definitely throws off the drivers what they would normally take during the dry time, especially through a Rouge. It's a part, the Rouge piece is very much, or Radion Rouge, is very much where a river flows underneath it. That's why it goes a bit up. And if you've ever seen the videos of Spa being flooded, you'll know that a Rouge, the lowest point, is normally the part that gets underwater. So the water likes to gather there and stand still there. And if you're not careful with it in all cars, and take a different line than your dry one, then what normally happens is you do lose control going up the bit of an incline that is a Rouge, and it's very difficult to really maintain it there. But then you think you're stable on the Camel Straight, but then you go downstairs, well, all the way downwards again into a very tight hairpin, and then into the Jackie X corner, if I remember, but I remember as a Speaker's corner there, or no name, but very tricky to really get it. Sparse curbs are very tricky. Mountain wrong, or just dip a tire on and be a bit too aggressive on the throttle, and your front engine suddenly becomes a rear engine, and your mid engine becomes a front engine car as it gets flung around, especially through Puhan.
Well, that being said, let's quickly go through the championship, because at the moment Chris Stolz leads out the championship with 2 wins in a row. He's being chased down by Jan Kleinans in second place, the Delta Negative, locking out that front row. Third place, Bernard Barkhuizen, finished third in both rounds, but tonight will be the very first time he will not be making the grid. So unfortunately, Bernard Barkhuizen not on the grid tonight, and maybe slipping down the order because Jaco Kutzer runs in 4th place and has an opportunity to launch his way up through the field. 5th place is likes of Jean Verveers in the Toyota. He's had a bit of a mixed match of a season thus far, as he's been trying to pick up the pace, but unfortunately it hasn't been the easiest with him out there, sitting with a 4th in round 1, a 6th in round 2. Brandon Kruger with a DNF in round 1, a 5th in round 2. But I just quickly looked over, and it does look like Bernard Barkhuizen, who thought not to be here, has arrived in the LDMH class.
Yeah, I also see it now on our timing sheet here also, Stephen, that he seems to be in, within the server along on the track. Hopefully he's able to get there and drive around. We'll have to see, otherwise he might have just entered, and unfortunately the car not firing up. We'll see if he goes out on track there. But it's good to see them, and as you mentioned, drivers unfortunately not being able to make it will slip down the championship standings and lose some valuable points, which will affect their shot at that trophy and being named the Season 2 champion here at RaceFace.Pro's LMU Championship.
And we also do have a change-up of drivers out there. Nathan Watt going and switching out from a Hypercar. Remember, he was in the old-style Peugeot not too long ago at Fuji. He went and swapped out for the car into a GT3 class. So, Kyle Oosthuizen leads out the charge, and he will be hoping to stay at the sharp end of the field. Now, Kyle, really hoping that's going to be a big charge for him, as he's got the likes of Johan Blichner chasing him down in second place. And Blicknight has been on a proper charge with that BMW. It looks like they've got it dialed in and able to get the hammer down. And then we have got Dion Kopp running in third place. Now, we did know that Dion had a really good run in Season 1. Coming right at the end of it, he was fighting out for the championship. Round 1, he got third place. Round 2, he got 6th, however. And then he's getting chased down by Michael as well. So there's so much happening in the championship at the moment. But with that being said, we are waiting for the first set of times to get put on the board from both our hypercars and our GT3s. And Crystals puts the first time on the board with a 2:17.5. Johan Kleinans a 2:19.7 in that Ferrari 499P. And the likes of Jean Verveers in the Toyota backing it up with a 2:19.9. Right on the back of Johan Kleinans. Brandon Kruger comes up with a 2:18.1. He has been on a proper drive, but has had unfortunate luck in round 1 and round 2 that took him out of the running.
Absolutely, yeah. Some good times coming in here. Baron Kruger already splitting the 2 Delta negative teammates here in the hyperclass car, just going there. But it seems like Crystals really is outperforming the likes of the Ferrari as well as the Toyota, just showing that the Peugeot is a bit of a car that is slept on by the drivers. I'm just looking at the sector times being popped up here. A half a second difference between the likes of Stolz and Kruger, which is quite phenomenal. The Peugeot, the French car, leading the way from all the likes of our Italian drivers. I kept looking into the pit box here of Bernard Barques, and unfortunately I don't see the car there on track ready to go. So unfortunately I think might have just got into the track and not able to fire up. I do hope I will eat my words, but we will have to see what happens as we take a look at our hyperclass cars. But the first times have come through for our GT3s with Esteban Pretorius, a driver who is new and really showcasing the skill that he has in the Lamborghini. A car that he has said is quite, was said to be quite dominating at the track, such as Sebring, but unfortunately not having the legs underneath him at Sebring, but seems to have figured out this the Italian car and really putting it up there with a phenomenal pace here, setting a time of 2 minutes 35 in these conditions, but only half a second back is the likes of Fjord Blicknight in the BMW, and third so far is the likes of Bego Grobler. Good to see him return a bit of form here, but it is still early days as the drivers need to still go out and put on times. But Bego holding third in the GT3 class with that Mercedes.
Well, also taking a look, Esteban Pretorius finished 21st in round 1, 23rd in round 2. So he is really trying to find to grips with the cars and trying to see what he can do. This is the first time within the top 15. With 8 minutes to go, however, can he keep the momentum? Michael van Rooyen fighting it out, 4th in the championship. Now down the order, he's down in 6th. So let's see how it's going to work out for him on his way out with the Aston Martin. Dennis Gillett also, we got to talk about the driver out at Sebring. Was a proper drive. Unfortunate mistakes came into play, but put in some serious lap times that was within the top 5 contention.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we did see a few McLarens getting getting taken out and losing their rear wings there. I did after the Sebring race, I did speak with some of the stewards there, and they did know the incident happened during the during the start of the race, where our GT3 cars, unfortunately, that involved the likes of Andre Moteshka and the Dion Kopp, and that led to some incidents for the other drivers leading unnecessary stops. And Dennis Gillett, unfortunately, was one of the drivers that were impacted by that, but still crawled the car back in order to get it fixed, and still maintained, well, received quite a good finishing result for him there. But really hoping that he sticks it out to the very end and hopefully has a chance to fight out the front, especially with conditions such as Spa. We both know, me and you, Stephen, and everybody out there in the grandstands, that rain is considered the greatest equalizer when it comes to drivers. It's not about speed, it's all about being consistent and keeping the car on the black stuff.
That's it. Go and concentrate on your lap times. Crystals still leads out the pack with a 2:17.5 and continues to open up that gap a little bit more. Brandon Kruger in second place. Johan Kleinans with the likes of Jean Verveers chasing him down in 4th. Jaco Kutzer sits in 5th. Esteban Pretorius out in 1st and having a great run out there. Blicknight in 2nd. Bego Grobler is down in 3rd, and he's actually quite off the mark here. a 236.0 versus Pretorius's 235.1. So that Mercedes is just not going and biting underneath him. Jason Farmer down in 4th place of the GT3s as he tries to claw his way up through the field. And taking a look over to our virtual grandstands, a massive, massive welcome to you all. Glad to see you out there. Liam Swinburne, Antonio Gamble, along with Martin Rotenbach, Ulrich Diaga, David van Veek, Stacey Leclerc, Jackie Pretorius. Massive to see you all out there having some fun, and welcome to a very, very wet circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. Now, as drivers are trying to get in that final lap time, however, I'm starting to see a lot of our competitors not able to complete a lap time. They keep putting a wheel off and losing out that little bit of margin. They land up going and having their lap times deleted, not having a good time out there. And there's a couple of drivers that's still battling, like Jordan Bernardi, who's a little bit forward, a little bit down the race. He's in 24th position. Nathan Watt sitting in 25th. Dion Kopp, Hilton Nixon, and Bernard Barkhuizen. I do think that we've got 2 retirements out of this race, which is Bernard Barkhuizen and Hilton Nixon will not be starting the race, as I didn't see them go out a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that is correct, Stephen. And unfortunately, Dion Kopp, as I did mention earlier, was an incident that occurred at Sebring in the start of the race. And our stewards did take a look at it from all the footage they had, from all the microsectors and all the telemetry coming from the cars and everything that happened, as well as car positioning through the GPSs. And unfortunately, Dion Kopp was deemed at fault and has been penalized and needed to serve a quali ban, I believe, meaning that they have to avoid this. Well, they can't can't go and drive, I believe, this entire race. I do stand under correction. I am looking at some of our stewarding sheets here to see if I can find some final notes, but it does seem that unfortunately he will have to set out this quali. And yeah, there I've got confirmation now. It does have a quali ban and it's not allowed to go out and set a time. So it's going to be difficult for Kopp in order to fight all the way from the back to get back and score some decent points out there tonight. But again, as I said during the drivers briefing, it's a long race. Drivers need to be patient, and they will be able to make up positions. It's wet, it's difficult. It's going to be a test of skill for the drivers in order to make sure they keep it out on track till the very end.
Well, interesting enough, Pretorius out in 1st place of our GT3s is really putting the wrench in for likes of Carl Oosthuizen, Johan Blicknoot, Dion Kopp, because he's now flipped it on its head. Carl Oosthuizen's down in 7th of the GT3s, and as you can see, not going to be going out for the rest of the qualifying session. He's done and will be waiting for the race. Now, a lot of the drivers will be thinking about the bigger strategies here, as Brandon Kruger has the rear snap underneath his Ferrari 499P. The likes of young Kleinans trying to make up a little bit more time and come through. Now, this does bring up a very good question, because you've had the experience of driving these hypercars and the GT3s in LMU and also in other sims as well. Cameron, why do we see a stronger show of GT3s versus our hypercars?
Well, it can be written down to, well, most people say, for example, it's just because of driving pleasure or familiarity. But the thing is, the management of a hypercar system is very intricate, Stephen, because it's very difficult. They don't really have ABS, I believe, in those cars. I don't even know. I don't even recognize it anymore. But it's so easy to lock up those tires and just have a unforced error. But then also another tricky bit that comes in is the battery management. There's 3 modes on the car. It's balanced, attack, as well as bold. And those are three deployment modes that our drivers will be fidgeting with during this entire race to be able to build the battery up to enough so that they are able to really go out and use it to the fullest potential. But because if you run out, then you are only down to your engine power, and that will force you to be quite slow. So having a peace of the mind, focusing on battery deployments as well as what's going on in your mirrors, is something that is a skill that needs to be developed in time, and also how the car will handle. These cars are very tricky, easy to lock up, easy to just miss a brake point, and the brakes are very, very sensitive. Where the GT3 has its ABS as well as traction control, the hypercars also have a traction control, but the ABS is much more prominent within the GT3, and it's a car that many drivers are familiar with, being across multiple sims that we've run here at RaceFace.Pro. So I think many drivers are just dipping their foot into the likes of LMU. It is a very new sim for many drivers and just getting grip to it. And that is why we see such a large field regarding our GT3s. And hopefully soon we will be seeing more Hypercar drivers, because who knows, Stephen, maybe we'll be able to sponsor a car and have a live reaction during the race, even though we all know that drivers sometimes say some stuff underneath that helmet that is not always the best way to broadcast.
Well, taking a look, the Hypercar is definitely a skill to learn, but it's going to be an interesting one with the GT3s because they don't seem to have as much grip as they would like out there on the circuit. We did see likes of Krobler going and losing control, LaRue's trying to get himself together, Mike McGeer as well, likes of Gerard VDV coming across as well, trying to pick up the pace in the McLaren. I've got to say, personally, I enjoy the Hypercars because the Hypercars do have, one, a lot of horsepower to them. Yes, there is a lot of management in terms of battery. You've got your virtual battery to deal with and virtual energy to go with. But with that high aero, lots of power, you're able to have a lot of fun with the car. You're able to cruise through corners a lot quicker than you think you can, and you just got to really drive by the seat of your pants to make it work. The only way I can describe it is if you have driven anything from Gran Turismo. Let's go way back into the consoles. Let's go back to GT4, GT5, and if you've driven the Toyota 7, which is a old school prototype car, where you could just keep your foot flat with the majority of the circuit, or even the old Toyota, it was a blue one, wasn't a Molten.
I do not know.
It was a little Toyota that you could get early on, and it was devastating to most of the field out there. You would definitely win all the bigger races in your higher tier classes, but you could keep your foot flat. You can keep your foot on the power. Once you get past the initial cold period, you get to hammer it out and get going. But that being said, in rain, well, you've got a surfboard to deal with, much like our GT3s, because there is no difference to the Hypercar and the GT3s, both with a flat bottom. We'll have to go and deal with the water. Jacking up that suspension a little bit is going to be crucial. Getting your tire pressures right is going to be crucial. And it's also about your suspension setup. How much body roll are you going to allow during the course of this race? And remember, it is going to change as time goes on. And we are going to take a look to our starting grid, Cam. It's going to be an exciting one. Out on the front row, Crystals and Brandon Kruger look to take out the charge with Johan Kleinans, Jean Verveers, Jaco Kutzer, and Bernard Barkhuizen rounds out our Hypercars. And you've got our GT3 pack.
Yeah, on our GT3 side is quite a phenomenal pace that's set here. Only 3/1000ths of a second is what splits our first and second for our GT3s. But leading the way is Esteban Pretorius in that Lamborghini, the Raging Bull, setting the pace there from the BMW of Johan Blichnout. In the second row for our GT3s, we've got Grobler followed by Jason Farmer. And in fifth and sixth, we've got Jeff LaRue and Michael van Rooyen lining up on our third row there. In our fourth row, we've got Carl Westhuizen, last week's second place winner, but also our Fuji winner, lining up in seventh, not where he wants to be and hoping to find his way back. And in eighth, we've got Dennis Gillett hoping to make a monster performance in the McLaren 720S Evo. In our fifth row, we've got the likes of Viete Buerta, alongside him, Dane Brown in the Mercedes. And then in sixth row, we've got Jody Steedman and Chris Heineke rounding out our top 12. In 13th, we've got Arno Kraus and Giel Matom lining up in 14th and 15th. And then finally, Grant Leclerc and Mike McGeer making 15th and 16th. 17th, we've got Gerard van der Veer and JD Gelderneys. 17th and 18th. And 19th, we've got Gideon Bernardi, followed by Nathan Watt. And rounding out our GT3s is Dion Cup. But I do believe, Stephen, that Hilton Nixon seems to be in the session, or might have been retired. No, still in the pits along with Bernard Barkhuizen. So, as our cars get underway, we make ready for some carnage, as well as some fun entertainment as they head into the long straight at Blanchemont, into the final piece of the, Blanchemont straight into the old bus stop. And Steve, I'm going to hand over the mic to you to get us racing here at Spa-Francorchamps for round 3 of our LMU RaceFace.Pro Championship.
It is going to be Crystals and Brandon Kruger fighting it out for the championship. And now in the wet, cold tires, cold brakes, lights on, and the drivers will be set to go racing. Our hypercars will be the first into the likes of Eau Rouge. Who is going to have the pace as we go? Green lights racing. Crystals trying to get the jump early on, going for a hard defense against Brandon Kruger. Brandon trying to sweep around the outside. Oh, there's the understeer coming in for Crystals into Brandon Kruger. Johan Kleinert sits at third, but it does look like a bit of a mistake coming in for our GT3s as Kyle Oosthuizen drops back. But it is Brandon Kruger leading out a little bit of a nudge from Crystals as they go up through Eau Rouge for the first time. And that is going to be a cut for Crystals and allow Johan Kleinert to get into the toe. But that spray is thick. And you can see already for Fears wants to get right away from it. Does not want to play in that spray. He wants to find his braking markers. Jaco Kutza follows up behind. But it's all plain sailing at the front at the moment as Crystals and Kleinert look to fight it out with one another.
Yeah, it's some good close battles there for our hypercars, but I keep an eye on our GT3s here. Pretorius having a phenomenal start there, and as you mentioned, that white wall of spray just makes it impossible for drivers to see. I see them diving out of the slipstream of the cars in front of them in order to actually see where the brake mark is or where they are on track, and that makes it extremely difficult in order to see what is going on. But Jan Blöchner doing a good job in order to stay close to that to that Lamborghini and hoping to make a position there. But Pretorius really putting on a masterclass performance so far in the start. Just have to be careful on those curbing in order to avoid getting the rear to step out, because the curbs are extremely slippery, especially in the wet. So drivers really have to be cautious. Bego Grobler just falling a bit back, hoping to play the smart game, while these two up front really set the pace and take charge.
Well, it is the V10 versus the straight 6 turbocharge versus the V8 naturally aspirators. They continue through the field. Pretoria is starting to open up the gap, but Kyle Oosthuizen, who had a mistake early on coming out of Lecum, now has got the likes of Jeff LaRue all over the back of him and Dennis Gillett for a little bit of company. Dan Brown, Chris Haneke, Guillermoton, Vietia Buerta, and it looks like Nathan Watt a little bit more comfortable in the GT3, starting to make his way up through the order. But that white wall becoming a little bit more of a problem for the drivers as they continue on. This is an hour's race, however, which means there will be a pit stop for the drivers to consider, and especially for our hypercars like our fighting duo of Chris Stills and Johan Kleinert, who are going to be burning their virtual battery down as well. So they have to consider that. As we do see Michael van Rooyen, an early pit stop for him as he dives into pit lane.
I was about to bring the attention of you to it, Stephen, at this point, because Michael van Rooyen unfortunately received a drive-through for that start, either being out of position, but also Jody Cinnamon. 2 drive-throughs for 2 of our GT3 cars, and Michael van Rooyen has proven to be quite prominent during the start of the season, but now having to serve a drive-through, maybe been out of position when the light went green, but now he has to be cautious when rejoining, as Dion Cup is close behind and really hoping to make up positions there, as Jody Cinnamon is still in the pits, but Haldenes just comes around the corner of the source, and looks like Van Rooyen is lucky. But Dion Cup really happy there as he's able to make up a few positions from the 2 mistakes that the drivers made earlier, and is now all the way from 21st to 12th in class from just the first lap, and that is quite a phenomenal start for the likes of Dion Cup as he hopes to climb his way back up into fighting positions for our GT3 class.
Well, Chris Haneke and Vietia Buerta fighting it out with one another. The Bend Porsche trying to make its way through. That's actually a new track to iRacing, very recent, is the Bend out there in Australia. Also a lot of fun. But take a look, Chris Haneke not having an easy time, as we do have one car very slow, slipping down the order. That is a Mercedes that's not so happy and now drops down further. Is that possibly Dan Brown? I think that is. That's Dan Brown, who lost it out at the top, was up against the wall and now getting pressure from the likes of Dion Cup, who's going to go around the outside over the curbing. That Ferrari 296 is not going to be happy out there. Tries to keep a foot down, and Dion really wants that position from Dan Brown. He's going to dive for the inside line, go for the take and is able just to sweep across the nose. And that's allowed Nathan Watt to get into the toe and pull himself along. So we have seen a bit of a fight here. Nathan, big send up on the inside. Little bit of pain sharing between the Mercedes and the Ferrari. Oh, but Nathan's off.
Oh, that's a car getting loose on the wet curbing that I did mention is quite tricky. Now he has to wait for the entire grid to get past. And unfortunately, just losing the rear end and Dane Brown being an innocent passenger there and clipping the rear of Nathan Watt and spinning him around, sending him into the kiddie litter, and really needs to wait for the cars to get past. But Stephen, another shocking one is Jaco Kutzer, one of our 5 hypercars that were driving around. Unfortunately, did not, well, had a drive-through after lap 1 and then received a stop-go penalty. Might have not been on pit limiter fast enough, and that has led to the team calling him, saying, listen, something is not right with the electronics, and having to pull the car into the box and calling it quits, it looks like, as the car has been pushed back into the box and just sitting there, and the team frantically working in order to get the car back out on track.
Well, that's it. A lot of hard work to be done there. Unfortunate for Jaco Kutzer, who was in the line to go for that 3rd place in the championship if he can get that car back out on the circuit. Now, we've got to bring in, as we do see the likes of Jeff LaRue completely off circuit, loses a drive, and Dennis Gillett goes and absolutely stomps past him with that McLaren, definitely quick in a straight line. But the championship does have a drop round to play with, and you don't want to be using your drop round too early in the championship. We've got 7 rounds to contend with, and this is round 3. You don't want to land up having a DNF as your drop round. You want it to be the lowest of your points, being 11th or 12th or 13th or 21st. Get rid of a low position, but don't let it be one that you haven't finished. Mike McGeer and Michael van Rooyen are fighting it out with one another and continue to keep the battle on. Fun fact about the WEC and IMSA series: if you do not present your car at qualifying, even just on the track for 1 lap, do you know that you're not able to use that as your drop round? You have to be, your drop round is a round that you presented your car in some way or form out in qualifying, whether it was limping in first gear or out there setting the fastest lap time.
Oh, I did not know that. I did know that this year at Le Mans, as I take a look here with the likes of Mike McGeer, unfortunately not showing some good pace out there and just losing round positions left, right and centre there in the Grove-coloured Mercedes there that, funny enough, is also the car that this year couldn't have one of its drivers do night stints because the car got crashed and the driver did not qualify and wasn't able to set the necessary times or laps in nighttime practice to be certified and capable of driving at night according to the stewards. So I can believe that if the car is not seen as scrutineering, that they are not allowed to race it.
No, it can. If it's a scrutineering, it's not a problem. It has to do 1 lap in qualifying.
Ah, yeah, it has to. Yeah, well, okay, that makes sense. I mean, you can't have a car go around and be out of position if the car drivers are fast enough. I mean, us as sim drivers are a bit spoiled by saying, I'm just going to set out quality and just drive. But unfortunately, in real world, you have to set a valid lap to be classified as a legal entry, I believe, to be able to even take to the grid. So you can't just sit out on qualifying and just go around. I'm going to make a bit of easy positions and have some fun out there. That would just be seen as unsportsmanlike. But yeah, take a look at our drivers here currently.
Talking about that, Dion Kopp making it easy around Virtua Buerta into Lecum, gets the pass done, now has got Maton up the road from him. He's fighting it out 9th in the GT3 field and still on the climb, but Virtua Buerta is hanging in the back, waiting for his opportunity to go for the pass yet again. But Maton now under pressure, who looking to try and run away out there in the BMW. Very, very stable in the wet weather, but can it be stable enough to hold back a charging Dion Kopp? And with Virtua Buerta keeping very close to the back of Dion Kopp, despite the spray, the drivers are contending with it, actually getting right into the slipstream of one another. And this is rather helpful for Virtua Buerta, because now he has an open opportunity to get past Dion Kopp and also Maton if they make a mistake, or Dion Kopp just opens that door. Well, we got to see a little bit now into the likes of Puon, and it is going to be Maton to hold the inside, but drifts out wide. Here comes Dion Kopp up on the inside, confident as ever, and wow, oh wow, getting that pass done, dusted, and on the way out. That is a drive from Dion Kopp, and now up into 8th place.
As soon as you said that, Steve got a bit loose. They're going into Piff Puff. Bit of contact side by side as it likes like Willem Botha or Vete Botha wants to really make another move on here on Baton there. And unfortunately, just losing out is Maton as Vete takes advantage of the move that was performed by Kopp. Some good racing there into Puon. Really made it, got the better grip out of the corner as keeping off of the jar line there, which is more rubber there. But really good moves there. But Steven, take a look back at our hyperclass car. Brandon Kruger has snatched the lead from Chris Tolls, the overall leader of the championship, and is already pulling quite a 2.5 second gap over Chris Tolls there. I wonder what has happened. Chris Tolls might have made a bit of a mistake there and has slipped Brandon Kruger through there, because Brandon Kruger, I want to mention at the start there, the Omnius Gaming boys and the Ferrari used to have phenomenal starts when it came to the LMU starts and just able to mug the likes of Delta Negative with Jan Kleinans and Chris Tolls. But it seems like not having the teammate out there, Brandon Kruger, has taken upon himself to really bring some honor to the Omnius Gaming squad and really taken the lead already with a 2-second gap over his nearest competitor. But also, I'm just taking a look at the virtual energy here. Already a 1% difference between the two, as they really need to be careful of what to do with Brandon Kruger using a bit more than the likes of Crystal. So that's going to be something that the Omnius Gaming team will have to be very cautious about in order to the very end and not get penalized.
Oh no, Kraus getting a little bit out of shape, turned round out of Lecum, and now needing to bring back a little bit of pace, down in 16th place. And during you talking about the hypercars, I was just entranced by the GT3s as Maton and Chris Heineke were fighting it out. Vietia Buerta joined the party as well. Chris Heineke closed up the gap. Dan Brown unfortunately ran out wide going through Blanchemont, and now looks to try and close up that gap yet again. The Merc very, very strong at the top end of the circuit, but just not finding the grip down at the low end, and especially through the fast sweeps of the likes of Blanchemont and Puon. But Chris Heineke continuing to keep the pressure on the back of Maton and looking to fight it out in the Porsche, really leaning in for the fight there. A little bit further back from them, Mike McGear and Grant McClure closing up, but Jody Sitterman and Honor Kraus are now starting to also play with one another at the back of the field. Question is, with the drivers sitting as fast as they can in the GT3 class, how quick is it going to be for our hypercars to gain a little bit of time? Because Brandon Kruger is not hanging around at the moment. He is absolutely going as fast as he can. Best lap time was a 2:20.6, and he's just gone through No Name, while our leader of the GT3s has just hit the bottom of the circuit.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because when as soon as the hypercars get close to these GT3s, it is going to be quite difficult for them to overtake them, especially in these conditions. But I'm also looking at the intrigue, all the intrigueness that is happening here, as we already see Brandon Kruger closing up onto our 18th in class GT3 already. But I'm taking a look at also the virtual engine that's being used by Chris Tolls and Brandon Kruger on my timing screen here, and it's already that Chris Tolls has used 0.1% less over the last 5 lap average compared to the likes of Brandon Kruger, and already almost a 0.5% difference on the last lap. So that means Brandon Kruger is a lot more on throttle and using a lot more virtual energy, and this is something that will need to be peeked at and looked at by the engineers over at Omnius Gaming as well as Delta Negative, and adjust their strategy in order to really maximize what they can do. But Brandon Kruger already a 2-minute 2, but as I said, that had a lockup into the bus stop and is going to penalize him and drop some time there. But it's going to be difficult. They're already catching up to our GT3s already. So next up on the board is the 17th in class, as there is a car exiting the pits, I believe. 22nd in class. Oh wait, no, that's Hilton Nixon, just showed up on our radar, but not a driver, unfortunately. But Chris Tolls maximizing what he can and closing that gap down onto Brandon Kruger and hoping to reclaim the lead of this race, as they do have to still make a pit stop. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do.
It's still a big, long game here. A little bit of air being taken by Brandon Kruger as he's pushing harder and harder. You can see that race suspension becomes a little bit more of a problem, but he's going to have to get past the likes of Arno Kraus and Jody Sitterman, who are in a fight of their own, now trying to make their way through the field. But this is also through the tightest part of the circuit, where being offline is not an option for these GT3s because they naturally will want to understeer. As you can see, Arno trying to open the door a little bit just to see if the likes of our leader, Brandon Kruger, could get on by, but how much it actually slows him down to the likes of Jody Sitterman just by getting that little bit thrown out wide. Costs you a monster amount of time, plus you're out into the puddles and start to suffer hugely. Jody, however, is going to keep his foot flat through Puon, which is absolutely perfect because he will understeer out, and that does allow Brandon Kruger to get on by. Unfortunately for Chris Stalls, he's going to have to be a little bit more patient here.
Yeah, unfortunately, going into the hairpin there, it is a normal line in the wet to go around out wide. But with the Hypercar, with the amount of downforce you have, you can easily take that inside line normally. But that's also something that you have to be able to really master, be on the dry line in the wet and still be fast enough in something difficult. But Brandon Kruger not hanging around, slicing through this traffic, actually giving me a bit of heart palpitations as he is a bit more braver, trying to go on the outside of Blanchimont. Very brave there, very gutsy. I wouldn't make that move, especially so early on in the race, but he does have his closest competitor in his rearview mirror. But he needs to be mindful. Don't take unnecessary risk, which might lead you to end up in the steward's office with time penalties and having all your hard work undone, or even lead to a crash with a GT3 because you aren't the faster class car, meaning you will be penalized harshly, as is your responsibility to overtake the slow class car more safer. But Jan Kleinans losing out a position to Jean Verveers in that Toyota. I wonder what happened. Might have had a bit of a snap there at Blanchimont, running wide and needing to just let off the gas in order to not get penalized. But again, Brandon Kruger needs to be mindful. You are approaching the slow class car. He's got a heap of them up ahead. He's only catching up to 12th in the GT3 class. He needs to be careful in order not to make reckless decisions. Someone needs to get off the team, needs to get on the horn and just tell him, be careful. You don't want to risk this. You've got a good lead, but a penalty will make it difficult as Chris Heineke, they jumps out of the way. I wouldn't say we wouldn't have done that because that's a strike against you, Chris, and gets penalized by the game itself. But really, Omnius needs to be careful with the driver and tell them, listen, you have your competitor, but he also has to work through this traffic. Do not take unnecessary chances. Be careful, and Chris Stalls will just be salivating as he sees the likes of Kruger struggling to really make these moves, and hopefully he doesn't get held up himself and just get closer and closer to him. But already just taking a look there, unfortunately, the last time I checked, Chris Stalls is 1.3 behind, already 3.7 behind the traffic, not being generous to our upper class cars.
Well, Michael Van Rooyen getting the pass on Maton, easy going up on the inside, utilizing the hypercars to his advantage. But as they're launching their way through, Chris Stalls now has to get past likes of Maton and Michael Van Rooyen, who are fighting for position. You can see Peugeot a little bit unsteady under braking, trying to get past the likes of Maton, and Van Rooyen will be next up to get on by. But it is going to be through the faster part of the circuit. It's going to be quite happy on that, flat on the gas, and keep going. The fight, however, back towards the sharp end of the field, as our first of our GT3s are now getting past the rear of our GT3s. Blicknote ahead of Pretorius, who's down into second place. Blicknote now taking that little bit more of an aggro approach, moves up ahead, and that is what he needs to fight out with Pretorius. And I've got to say, Pretorius is really showing off good pace here in the wet. How long can he keep it going for is the big question. And is it going to be helpful to push himself a little bit more towards the end of the race when they have to go for those pit stops? A little bit further back, Grant Leclerc and Dan Brown fighting it out. They do have the likes of Jean Verveers and Kleinans to come on by. This is Johan Kleinans who just makes it 3 wide, and it's going to help out the likes of Dan Brown around the outside. Grant Leclerc forced to the center of the circuit. Not ideal for a defensive or attacking line, and Brown right around the outside. Makes it easy work there.
Yeah, absolutely, and I just jumped on board the likes of Jan Kleinans as Jean Verveers made a bit of a mistake at Lusail and causing him to run a bit wide, not getting the drive out. But Jan Kleinans having to fight back again, and this is what I mean, Stephen, that this entire championship might be blown open here entirely. We've had it happen at the Rugby Championship with the losses of Argentina over the All Blacks, and that blew up the entire Rugby Championship. And now we're going to have the same here with our LMU Championship, with our leading drivers having some issues there and falling from second to fourth, and then also our first Crystals dropping from first to second with our current racer. And that is what wet weather racing does. It blows open everything. It doesn't show that, oh, you have a fast car, you are just going to run away with the championship. No, that is completely out the window. It's all about having the car on track, keeping it stable also being fast in these type of conditions. And Brandon Kruger seems to have the upper hand over the likes of Crystals. But again, we do still have a pit stop coming in, but Brandon Kruger running away, the only one lapping in 2-minute 21s, and the closest competitor is Crystals with 2-minute 22. Our third and fourth are both running in the same type of class of 2-minute 25s. So it's going to be quite difficult to see really how these drivers, how it's going to unfold at the very end, as they have to slice their way through our GT3 field as Jan Kleinans gets a bit close to the likes of a Porsche, the Anthony Porsche of Chris Heineke there. But take a look at our leading India, as Brandon Kruger is now coming up to our front-running duo of Johan Blichnout and Esteban Pretorius.
Gone past Carl Oosthuizen and Bego Krobler, who were fighting out for GT3 third place, and now going to be staring down the barrel of first of our GT3s. Blichnout will be in communication with the likes of Brandon Kruger, going and saying, okay, where are you on circuit? Let's try and work out what's going to be the best way for you to get round me, to hold your first place, and for me not to lose time to Esteban Pretorius, who's chasing down at a rate of knots. And Pretorius forced to the inside line out of Rouge. Big set for Brandon Kruger, and a great save on both their parts. But that is played into the hands of Johan Blichnout, who was passed down the main straight and now can open up the distance. So, as our drivers push themselves this little bit more, first and second of our GT3 is still the closest battle out on circuit, as our drivers fight their way through. Crystals will have to get past the fighting duo, and be sure that our GT3s are not going to give them the most ideal line here, because Pretorius is in contention for his very first win in RaceFace.Pro, and now having a shot in the GT3 class. He doesn't want to give this up, especially around a very, very wet Spa, as Crystal slots himself in the middle of the two, and now forces Pretorius to run out a little bit wide. Stills goes to the inside of Blichnout, and that returns the favor to Blichnout. So this is now back to a close fighting duo. I thought that we may see likes of Pretorius getting the short end of the stick. Well, it looks like it goes to both Pretorius and Blichnout during the running of this order. That being said, Cam, it is still a long race. 36 minutes and 56 seconds to go. And generally, when we got around about 35 minutes to 20 minutes, we saw those pit stops starting to come in for our different classes. This time around, however, our hypercars sitting with the lowest of 46% left in their virtual battery, with the most being the likes of Jaco Kutzer with 75%. Unfortunately, retired out of the race, so he won't be making any moves, but Verveers sitting with that 58% and is able to run a little bit further. So if my calculations are right, and I wasn't very good at maths, so don't take it as gospel, we should see these cars coming in at the 20 minutes below mark to go racing for our hypercar field. Our GT3s, however, are sitting between 120 to 110 litres of fuel between the different cars. And Pretorius started to put the pressure on. Blichnout is now starting to utilize a little bit more fuel in that V10 and will be cutting down his percentage and will be roughly 2 laps short to the likes of Blichnout with that straight 6 turbocharge that is more happy in these colder conditions.
Well, yeah, I do think that we'll be able to make it up to the very, very end, Stephen. But as these cars are able to run to that long, but with this wet weather, it might be a bit something, will be a bit something strange compared to what they previously had. But Pretorius really getting it up there, as they do on average use the same percentage of virtual energy, 4.7% as they do. But over the past 5 laps, the likes of Blichner just using 0.1% less, so 4.6 to the likes of Pretorius, as they really need to be careful. But from what would you say advice if there was anybody listening for of Pretorius team there as an engineer? For me, I would say be cautious, just a bit of a flash there as I drive on board with Pretorius. Be mindful of that. You don't want to overflash, as there is something that the stewards might wrap you on your knuckles for, as being a bit of distracting. But I would say be mindful of the curbs. From what I would see, just be careful of those curbs, especially going into Perf Path. Don't want to mount that inside curb, because it does tend to slow you down. Keep off of it, as you will be a bit better in these type of conditions, and you'll be a bit better exit coming out of it also. So yeah, it's a good battle between these two. Pretorius hunting down his inaugural win as well as his inaugural podium, I would believe. So just be mindful, there's a lot at stake here for Pretorius, but also Blichner knows how to defend, as he had a phenomenal defensive masterclass against the likes of Oosthuizen at Sebring. But get a bit loose is the likes of Pretorius as he mounts onto the curb, give a bit of a flash saying, I'm coming, buddy. I wouldn't make a move around Blanchimont is very tricky here. Back off, stay in the slip, and be better on the brakes going into bus stop, as that is the best one. But he does have a blue flag, as the likes of Jan Kleiners, who got past the likes of Afias, and now hoping to get past the dueling first and second place of our GT3s. Very cautious, hoping for a bit of a switchback is Pretorius. Gets on the curb, on the throttle, throttles it out. Not able to get a better drive. And now he has to make space for the hypercar as they go into the source. But who's going to be the best with brakes? Hoping to get an inside line. Who's the best brave on the brakes? Nope. Looking for a dive. Nope, not going to make it. Rather thinks better of it. Hoping to get a better run going up into Radion and Rouge, and hopes to get a move into Lacombe. But we'll see what happens as we keep a close eye on this battle going forward.
Well, you could say young Blichnote will be folding in those mirrors. He knows how to defend and has been in a fight from ACC all the way through to LMU. And if you flash these lights at him, well, he's going to learn how to ignore you and really make life a little bit more miserable there on the way through. But it is Jean Fierce gets a clean on pass and does give a little bit of a tow for Blichnote and Pretorius to continue on their fight. A little bit further down, however, we got Grant Leclerc and Arno Kraus. Haven't spoken much about them. Grant Leclerc, unfortunately, having a little bit of an issue, as we do see Jody Cinnamon a little bit ahead and went off circuit. Our Aston Martins weren't off to the best of starts, and Arno Kraus out there in the Lexus getting turned around at the Lecumbe, and unfortunately now down in 16th position, trying to fight his way back. The team tryhard driver looks to carry on the pace and really make his way through. If I remember correctly, one of likes of Arno Kraus's best liveries that I've personally seen was the Team Tryhard Lego colors that he was actually racing in Le Mans, in iRacing, and he did race it in the ACC at a point. But Blichnote, Pretorius still our closest fighting duo, but rounding out with our field, Brandon Kruger leads out the hypercar class with Chris Stalls in second place. Johan Kleinards holds third place, with the likes of Jean Verfiers in fourth place as our running duo.
Esteban Pretorius. Sorry, Steve, to jump in here, but Esteban Pretorius made a bit of a mistake there and has dropped from second all the way down to fourth.
That is a nightmare case. Carl Oosthuizen is going to be saying thank you very much. Beggar Frobler says thank you very much. Jason Farmer now has a look at Esteban Pretorius. Now the question comes in. Little bit too excited on the throttle, trying to get the hammer down a little bit too early, costing him a bit of time, as he now has to fight past Beggar Frobler, who's more than happy to fight it out, and Carl Oosthuizen, who leads out the championship with Blichnote running in second place. I mean, this is a tough fight for the likes of Pretorius to try and claw back, but Carl Oosthuizen needs to stay in second place to keep the championship within reach with him at the moment, because he's taken 2 firsts, but a second place here can hurt, where Blichnote can be quite thankful for being in first at the moment, because his drop round would be round 1 as he came 11th position.
Yeah, unfortunately for Pretorius, they're getting into Piff Paff, that quick right left-hander after Puan, getting too early on the throttle, and as I mentioned, clipped the curb there, very tricky there, and you will lose it there. Unfortunately, goes and spins around and being too early on the throttle there, and now has to fight his way back from 4th all the way to 3rd. But the Lamborghini has proven to have quite a bit of pace over the likes of Grobler there and already putting it on. But I can tell you this, Steve, the weather out there has gotten worse and worse since the race started, with our leading hypercars. Just looking at the time, as I said, their best lap time currently being held by Crystals was at 2:19, and unfortunately now already goes and it seems to be going with the track going faster a bit there, but Crystals leading out the way, setting the fastest lap, so hunting down the gap to the likes of Brandon Kruger. But unfortunately, I don't think that it will be enough for Brandon Kruger, well, for Crystals to hunt down the likes of Brandon Kruger, unless Kruger goes and messes up entirely on the pit strategy or makes a mistake and gets clipped by the likes of a GT3 in his attempts to pass them. But so far, it's as you mentioned, Stephen, the drop round is still in effect for Brandon Kruger. The drop round is going to be his DNF at Fuji, and then from there on will be the results that he scores from now on. So anything that is a finish for him now counts towards his championship standings, but will it be enough? We do not know for Crystals at this point in time. If he finishes second, this will be his drop round. If it were to be tonight to decide, this is going to be how the drop rounds are calculated.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one. Take a look. Crystal still has a lot in that virtual battery to push through to a lot more at the end, possibly to go for the overcut on Kruger. And that's going to make life a little bit more interesting to contend with, as we do see Bago Krobler and SC Pretorius keeping within a second of one another. Both drivers not wanting to give up the ghost here. Both drivers not wanting to lose out the fight between the race. Now, the question comes in is how long can they stay in for this fight? How long are they willing to push a little bit more? As we do see Pretorius getting a little bit more late on the brakes every step of the way, trying to close up. But it is Jan Bluchnote that leads out the pack, with Carl Oosthuizen in second. Bagel Krobler holds third at the moment, with Esther Pretorius chasing him down in fourth place. Jason Farmer followed by Dennis Gillett, Jeff LaRue, Dion Kopp, Viertia Buerta, and rounding out our top 10 is Michael van Rooyen. Mouton lies in 11th position with Chris Haneke, Dan Brown, Jody Cinnamon, Arno Kraus, and Grant Leclerc. Rounding out our pack, however, is going to be Nathan Watt, Mike McGear, and Gerald van der Venter, who will be rounding out that pack. But unfortunately, a couple of DNFs, likes of Gideon Bernardi and JD Hildenhuis, not getting back out on the circuit after starting their race and now having to contend with a DNF in their results.
Unfortunately, two DNSs did not start in the form of Hilton Nixon and Bernard Barkhuizen, but Gideon Bernardi and JD Geldenhuis, our two first retirements, as Jaco Kutzer is still in the pits. The garage door not closed down yet. No red marker of doom being crossed with that entry just yet. Just sitting there, hopefully getting the car sorted out and getting around on track there. But we will have to see, and hoping that the likes of Jaco Kutzer is able to finish it out there. But Stephen, we did mention another driver that started all the way at the back, Dion Kopp. Has made phenomenal progress up the field, but unfortunately has fallen flat on a bit of a plateau there, not getting past the likes of 7th, as he is hunting down the likes of Jeff LaRue, but every time he gets close, but not able to really make an impact and get past that Mercedes of LaRue. So now he has to really dig deep, because unfortunately this will be his drop round if it was decided tonight, as he has a podium finish and then a 6th from Sebring. So it's going to be something he has to dig deep in order to really get back and minimize the damage done to his championship hopes.
Yeah, that's it. And likes of Dion Kopp and Jeff LaRue just fighting it out. I mean, LaRue has been on an absolute charger of late, which is always phenomenal to see, considering his results going back. He got a 19th in round 1 and an 18th in round 2, and looking to sit within the top 10 is a big jump through the order. He wants to try get closer to Dennis Gillett to at least try for that 6th place in class position. However, Dion Kopp, keeping that pressure, keeps going on and trying to figure out what is going to be the right way to apply pressure. What is going to be the right way to get round. And this is the same thing Begor Krubler is facing at the moment. As he stares into the rearview mirrors, he will see the Lamborghini chasing down in the left mirror, in the right mirror, and in the center, causing a little bit of a problem. Pretorius, however, is caught behind that white wall and will be trying to judge where is his brake markers, how far can he go, also how much is left in the car to go, as Begor Krubler misses out likes of Eau Rouge and now losing out a bit of time.
Unfortunately, not the great run up Rouge is Krubler, what Krubler was hoping for there. But Pretorius really just throwing into a white wall of mist there. I mean, Stephen, that's something that I can attest to, and something that you also can attest to. Specifically, my first wet weather race on ACC in a professional championship was on another series and also in the Lamborghini, and something that you commented out saying you're proud, your first interaction with me was you're proud of how I managed the Lamborghini around a certain track, which is Alton. And me and you both know how that ended up. Get onto the front row, lose out after the first race, and I just have a white wall in front of me. And guess what happened at turn 3? I just ran straight on and I put on the wrong tires after putting that. You recall that that was the first interaction we had. So I do know what the likes of Pretorius is dealing with that white spray wall there. The Lamborghini is not the best car with that has a lot of maximum view out of it. So it's a bit of sympathy going out there to Pretorius there, but he does have the pace over the likes of Begor, but Begor has the experience and has clear view in front of him in that Mercedes. So it's something that favors in both directions, and now it's going to be who is the best there, with Pretorius being a bit best last time around across the time, being only about a tenth faster compared to the likes of Krubler.
You spoke about it in terms of visibility out of both cars, and you dead right on this one. The Mercedes has more visibility due to the driver actually sits closer to the front windscreen. Well, in the Lamborghini, the driver actually sits further back. There's a lot more dash in the way. So despite the Mercedes having a longer nose, there's less dash to contend with. Now, the fight comes in of how are they willing to push themselves a little bit more. We're into 23 minutes left of this race, and the drivers are still out there fighting it out, contending with the conditions. And we do know that these cars could possibly make it to the end, as Jason Farmer, big snap overseer from him, has allowed Dennis Gillett to close up after bus stop. But that being said, 22 minutes to go. Is there enough for the tank to get you through to the end? Is that 0.1 of a litre that you are counting on going to be enough to see it through to the checkered flag? Or are you going to have to pit at the moment? And that is going to be the thoughts coming through Kruger, Crystal, Kleinans, for fears. They're going to have to be thinking about this long-term gain, much like the likes of Jörg Blicknote and Karl Oosthuizen, who are further apart from one another, but still have an opportunity to move up in the championship. They're 2.93 seconds off one another, but still a close run between them, as Begor Krubler up against a wall. Begor Krubler with major damage to his car.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to try and say back in a Rouge, no rear wings. So that has only indicate one thing: the rear has stepped out on the likes of Krubler, and that has led him to just lose control going up a Rouge. And as history writes it, that is the end of that car damage. I'm going to just take a look at our production van. It's trying to see what happened. It's like bringing up a replay bit there for me. Going up a Rouge, snap oversteer in the dip, and that's gone front back. Goodbye rear wing, goodbye front bumper. Great job for him to get it off of that racing line as best as possible there, unfortunately, and just other drivers unfortunately having to take some evasive action. But that is a car that's in the pits being towed around into the garage. That is some significant damage that needs to be done there, Steve. But I also have a bit of an insight here. I've taken a bit of a sneak peek from our cameras over the likes of how much fuel is still left with the likes of Brandon Kruger and Chris Stolz. Chris Stolz, when he last crossed the line, was 7.8 laps remaining. So if he's able to save 0.2 laps, he can go a lap longer than his competitor in the form of Brandon Kruger, as Brandon only had a low 7.2 left. But then take a look at Jan Kleinans. He has a massive leap compared to the front runners, as well as Jean Verveers. who has, the last time around, had about 10 laps left in the field, but he also has a bit of damage on the front of that Toyota. But now the strategy comes in. Brandon Kruger, he has been flying, has been using a lot more energy compared to the likes of Chris Stalls over the last 5 laps, 0.2% more compared to the likes of Stalls, and already a yellow indicator there on his virtual energy there as he catches up to our runners. Thought he was diving into the pits there, as a bit of a snap there on the car. But Chris Stalls is the one that's a bit of in the driver's seat there as he's crossed the line, and guess what? He has made up the 0.2 of the lap needed to overcut the likes of Brandon Kruger. So now this has gone and thrown the strategy completely out the window for Brandon Kruger. He has gone too hard, too soon on that energy and not able to really extend it.
He's gonna have to keep his foot firmly planted to make it up. This is where you go from a strategy of lift and coast to brute force power. Now, this is something we do see a lot of drivers implement. Some are a little bit easier to save fuel, save tires, can go that longer distance, but can be outdone by those who are just brute force pace. If you can put down 2-3 seconds of clear lap time, if you can open up 2-3-4 seconds to the competitor around you and start getting rid of that deficit, you can close up the race and be able to make your way through. This is what we saw in season 1. Who was able to really stretch their legs over a longer period? Who's willing to really put that hammer down? We saw it in round 1 and in round 2, trying to sort out the deficit. This is where your game plan has got to switch up significantly, and it comes down to RNG. Where do you come out on circuit when it is a GT3 around you? If it's in a corner, you got a problem. If it's down a straight, you're going to be happy. For the GT3s, it's the same scenario. Who is got enough in the tank to overcut, or are you willing to take the undercut to try and make it go on by? But Kruger has got 3 seconds to Chris Stalls, and a pit stop here is incredibly long, as you will be suffering a 30-second stop. Easy to go and try and get yourself sorted out. And you can see Kruger going late on the brakes onto the inside of Pretorius. Gets a lot of room. Pretorius, not wanting to lose out that 3rd place, will allow our Hypercars to cleanly get by. But Chris Stalls, however, will make up the ground heading down the straight. A quick flash of the lights as he's trying to get Pretorius' attention before they get to Eau Rouge, to try and get that pass done, get back into the racing line and push himself that little bit more. But Chris Stalls has got to be careful, because now he's standing on the gas a little bit harder to try and close up that gap. He's starting to realize there is an issue building up between himself and Kruger.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. And you mentioned the pace there, the pace difference, and that's something that me and you can talk about personally. You are phenomenal when it comes to fuel saving, able to extract 2 or 3 more laps out of it. But it's something difficult to master, to be able to be fast at all this fuel saving. That's something that Chris Stalls has mastered over the past 2 seasons, and it's something that he's playing into his favor right now, already averaging about a percentage or 0.1% better on fuel energy. As I say that, he runs deep into the hairpin there, and now looking at what is going to be the best between the two of them in order to maximize the best out of it.
Take a look at the gap between the likes of Brandon Kruger. It's 2.9, but on the last lap, Brandon Kruger was 0.6 of a second quicker than Chris Stalls. So closing down that gap to try and break that deficit is a little bit helping, but is putting a lot of strain on the car, and he's starting to lose those rears. It is wet weather out there. It means your tires don't take as much of a hammering as compared to the dry. That being said, those grooves that you start to see in the tire, you will see them start to thin out. It will start to bald and will make it a little bit harder for the tire to displace water, to chuck it off to the sides, to maintain grip. You're starting to go from a wet tire to a semi-slick, heading into a slick. And that's where life gets a little bit more interesting. Every time you put offline into dry parts of the circuit and where it's going to be a little bit warmer. And for Brandon Kruger, who's sliding the car around, is starting to feel it.
Absolutely, Stephen. And what is quite shocking, you mentioned there about the times, but if I take a look here, Chris Stolz, the previous lap was before now was 16th faster, but now Brandon Kruger in clear running was able to just ink out that gap once again, setting a 2-minute 21 compared to a 2-minute 22 of Stolz, about a second faster already, as Kruger has been doing this past lap. So it was all about the ebbs and flow of the traffic, with Chris Stolz not benefiting this time around, but previously Brandon Kruger was able to pull a better gap compared to the likes of Stolz. But now they've got a bit of clear running before they reach the back end, semi-back end of our GT3 field there, of the 16th position in the GT3 class. So now it's all about when will they be able to pit and when will they not be able to pit, as it's a bit of strategy about who has gotten more fuel in the tank before they have to box.
Well, this is going to be interesting for our hypercars. However, for our GT3s, it has stabilized. Now, majority of the race, we have seen some up and down moments. Unfortunately, another retirement being in the eyes of Beggar Frobler after the monster of an impact he had up heading through Eau Rouge. Unfortunately, we didn't catch it on camera, but Johan Blutnoot leads out the field with Kyle Oosthuizen in second place. This is a good position for him to finish his race, considering the drop round into the championship. Esteban Pretorius up into third, fighting his way through, trying to get that little bit further. Jason Farmer down in fourth place, with Dennis Gillett in fifth. Dion Karp trying to close up the gap in sixth position, with Jeff LaRue a little bit further down in seventh. Eighth goes to Vietia Buerta. Michael van Rooyen is in ninth, and rounding out our top 10 for our GT3s is Chris Heineke out in that Porsche. 11th is Dan Brown. Maton sits down in 12th position. Jody Cinnamon, who has had a little bit of a nightmare race, has still kept the pace going and will see it through to the end, along with Grant Leclerc, as they are currently 13th and 14th respectively. Nathan Watt also trying to make his pace through. He's down in 15th. Honor Cross, a little bit further down, will have the likes of Crystals coming on by as the rain starts to pour down a little bit more here at Spa. In the final 12 minutes and 40 seconds, Honor Cross will be trying to keep ahead of Gerald van der Venter, who's down in 17th position. Mike McGeer rounds out our running pack of GT3 cars that are fighting through to the end. Once again, it's all coming down to who's willing to push that a little bit more, who's willing to try and claw their way to victory in this race. Difficult conditions, and most certainly is the hardest conditions that these drivers have felt all season and from last season. Last season was a bit of a bring back and try and feel what the rainy conditions can do. Well, here at Spa, it's about dumping it all down and really making life a little bit more tricky and putting a bit of rain on everyone's parade. However, Kruger and Stolz continue to play a little bit of a yo-yo effect with one another. 4.5 seconds up to 5 seconds immediately. Kruger putting that hammer down, does not want to get caught up with Chris Stolz, and is emptying out the battery as far as it can go, straight into attack mode. He knows he's going to be coming into the pits to refill the virtual battery and will be filling up his car just enough to see it through to the end, but trying to break that deficit that Stolz has on him. And at the moment, Chris Stolz is also trying to dial up the wick, feeling the pressure at the moment to try and close up to Brandon Kruger, who's hoping for one of his best results here this season. No contact, no knocks, no drives. It is all pace and will be a stellar run for him as he gets a huge tank slapper through Blanchemont and nearly having commentators curse right there. And I would have been sworn at in all kinds of different languages, including gibberish at that point, but gets it wrong through bus stop. and will have to just slow down a little bit more, as this does allow Chris Stalls to close up to him.
Yeah, unfortunately in the sim we do not have doesn't make use of a slowdown penalty as most of us are familiar with, but unfortunately it will count towards a penalty as LMU does use a strike system. If it determines you gain time by cutting a track, you will get penalized, and I do believe he might have gained some time there. But Steve, you do mention there that he has to be cautious there. Runs wide, that's going to be another strike, unfortunately extending the track limits there. This is all now being, again, having to dial back the driver and not force them too much in order to exploit too much pace there. But it has to be careful. Him and Stalls has been battling it out, setting identical lap times in and out the whole time. If it's one in the 22, the other was in 22, all depending on traffic is when they only see the difference between the two of them. But again, that car being very, very loose as it exits the final chicane, well, the final portion of Lacombe, heading into the hairpin there, is again being very, very brave. And you mentioned, Stephen, season 1 we only had 2 races of rain. That's been at Fuji, where it was a bit of a monsoon, where Japan is more known for its monsoon weather there, and then also the iconic Le Mans, where it was raining there, and it was a bit of a first taste for the drivers to experience wet weather racing. And at the hands for Chris Stalls, it's the second time around that he's driven the hypercar around here. But for the likes of Brandon Kruger, it is the first time wet weather racing in a hypercar, in a Ferrari nonetheless. So it's something that is very tricky to maintain, and I must say it's quite interesting to see how that rear just keeps moving around on acceleration as well as into braking.
Absolutely great stuff. As we do keep an eye out, he's currently sitting on 4%, virtual battery going down to 3%. This is gonna have to be a pit stop for Brandon Kruger, and it is gonna have to be a lap of champions for Chris Stalls to come out ahead. 8 minutes and 30 seconds to go as they fight their way through. However, for our GT3s, we want to go back down to them, because Dennis Gillett and Dion Kopp are now in close proximity to one another and are getting ready for a fight. Dion Kopp wants to get back into that top 5, and what a climb it would be from a disqualification in qualifying, not able to go out and qualify, now fighting for the top 5. Dennis Gillett also been a phenomenal drive on his part to claw that McLaren up into 5th, and not too far up the road from him is the likes of Jason Farmer, who's 2.4 seconds up the road from him. So Brandon Kruger in and out through pit lane, but it is going to be Chris Stalls who keeps his foot on the gas to try and stretch the gap. And for the likes of Brandon Kruger, he's getting swamped out by the field, gets ahead of Nathan Watt, and now looks to try and charge his way through. Brandon Kruger has got a lap of the ages needed to make it work. For Chris Stalls, it's going to be how far can he run to ensure he gets going. Blicknote into pit lane as well, as he's doing his pit stop, and that is going to allow Kyle Oosthuizen to get on by and take the top end of the field. This is now turning into a little bit of a tricky race. Some are risking it for the biscuit. They're going to go that little bit longer to try and see if they can claw a victory, if they can get the overcut, but they need to go and get a 30-second run to them. Dennis Gillett, Dion Kopp get ahead of Jan Blicknote, who just exits pit lane. He will see the fighting duo ahead of him, but he is completely refueled to see the end of this race. Dion Kopp and Dennis Gillett, however, are going to try and fight their way through. They can use engine mappings to help them out in these GT3s and in the hypercars to just go that little bit further. Oh, Jan Blicknote, major tank slap, he saves it. Oh, never mind. Big impact into the wall, and that is a BMW that is going to be hurting on its rear suspension and just trying to sort out the nose as well. Don't worry, Blicknote, I would do that to the BMW as well to try and fix that front end. But that being said, Kopp and Gillett now have a little bit of free reign between one another. Blicknote, who was leading out the race in the GT3s with a huge gap, unfortunately, just with cold tires, getting down and not able to get going. Will fall into the clutches of Yeti Abueta. And remember, he sustained a little bit of damage to the rear suspension of the car and a little bit of front aero damage as well. So we're starting to see the race starting to unfold, but Chris Stalls is going further in this race. Brandon Kruger, however, back in through pit lane.
Interesting, Steven, because I was about to make a bit of a, well, I'm not normally a gambling man, but I'm going to do this and say that Chris Stalls has saved enough fuel to not have to stop. Because if calculations are right, he has about 1.6 laps left in the tank and only has to do 2 more laps. When he crossed the line, he had 2 laps remaining in the tank.
Brandon Kruger is going to have to come out, and he's going to sit right behind the Toyota of Jean Verfiers. How's this for a bit of a change-up, as Jean Verfiers, tailing behind Arno Kraus, will have the drive, and now has a chance to get past the likes of Brandon Kruger, heading up to Eau Rouge. Arno Kraus moves out of the way. He does not want to be part of this fight, as we do see both the Toyota and the Ferrari go flying through Eau Rouge. Both of them will be getting a strike at the moment, but Brandon Kruger is on a fight of redemption at the moment, while Jean Verfiers, who's got plenty of energy left in the tank, to try and push a little bit harder, to try and keep ahead of this Ferrari 499P. Brandon Kruger has had his whole race flipped on its head, and I think he didn't have enough of the tank. They didn't refuel the virtual energy enough to get him sorted out, and this has now flipped the entire race through, as Blicknote up into 4th position. Farmer and Carp get into pit lane, and now trying to get themselves out of it. But Verfiers is trying everything he can to get round the GT3s. He hunts the inside line of the Aston Martin and absolutely runs on by. Brandon Kruger is fighting for his life at the moment, and Verfiers is trying to make this Toyota as wide as possible. He is hoping for every GT3 to mine out the way, but Kruger is all over the back of him, trying to figure out how to get the drive. Verfiers is just stopping it dead on the apex every single time to try and force Kruger to go off cam. Now this is where going to be the Ferrari is going to have the advantage around the outside. Tries to look for the inside. Verfiers goes to center circuit, defends the inside line, runs out a little bit wide, forces Kruger out wide with him, heading into bus stop. Once again, Verfiers, middle of the circuit, stops dead on the apex, but misses out a little bit. Here comes the likes of Brandon Kruger around the outside. Kruger's going to get the run if he can get the drive, and it's going to be side by side, heading into Lacombe as they continue to fight their way through. Verfiers will have to relinquish the position, however, tries to go for the undercut on Brandon Kruger, but I don't think has got the drive of that Ferrari 499P that is able to really leg it up. His only option is to keep in the slipstream up through Eau Rouge and try get that pass done at the top, heading towards the right hand bend at the top. It's going to be Brandon Kruger, defensive inside line. Verfiers hunts down the grass even. He is determined for the inside line. He gets the inside, but has now fouled himself up for the left-hander. Still loses out to Brandon Kruger. Tries to come back in contact between the two.
A bit of a squeezing there, unfortunately, from Kruger as well as Verfiers, and that has led to contact between both of them, Stephen. But I think my prediction for the life of Chris Stalls have been right. He has saved enough fuel not to go and stop, but unfortunately, this is the battle that is going on.
Contact
no.
again! Verfiers turn round, secondary contact, third contact, and that is Verfiers into the wall. Nose damage to the Toyota, puts to bed the race with Brandon Kruger, and will have to just limp that car through. But I do want to point out, another brilliant run comes in for our GT3s as Oosthuizen and Pretorius were able to get out just ahead of Johan Blicknote, who's tailing down in 3rd place. He's trying to close down on Pretorius. Remember, he's still got that little bit of damage on him as well. But Chris Stalls comes into pit lane to go and get his pit stop done and dusted with 33 seconds left in this race. He's going to have enough leg room to get ahead of Jan Kleinans, only just on the exit. As here comes Kleinans, trying to go that little bit further. Unfortunately, is narrowly going to miss out on getting that top spot away from Chris Stalls. But Brandon Kruger, still hunting down, is in third place. Now, I do suspect has got a bit of damage to his car, and unfortunately will be waiting it out at the moment. Heartache goes for the likes of Fafias, who was in for the fight. Unfortunately, a little bit of roughhousing between Brandon Kruger and Fafias. Both of them putting the squeeze on one another. Both of them fighting for that position. And there's only so much road to give before you run out of road. However, Vietia Buerta gets around the likes of Jeff LaRue as we go to our GT3 battle for 7th and 8th position.
In a shocking turn of events, Stephen, I think Chris Stalls might have miscalculated. As I look at the virtual energy, only has 2% left, and by calculation, that's only 0.3% of the lap. Is he going to get penalized? I do not know, because otherwise he will have to box right now at the end of this lap, but I don't think that will count, because this is the final lap. This is white flag lap, meaning that next round will be checked.
We've seen a DQ on the last corner when you run out. That we saw last season at Monza. For Chris Stalls, lift, coast. That's all that you need to do. Use the gears, lift, coast. Don't touch the brake pedal. Don't go and touch that throttle pedal too much. You need to just try and get this car just to limp across the line. This is where every downhill is in favor of you, and every uphill for anyone that drives a Golf or drives anything that's got a high mileage in terms of fuel. Well, uphills are never fun to deal with, as Chris Stalls trying to get that little bit further. Is he going to have enough? Will he be penalized at the last? Nope, I think he's got enough. 6% left in the battery. Kleinans has got 9, and Chris Stalls has gotten away with his pit stop and will come across the line taking that top spot. So Chris Stalls finishes out in first place for our hypercar class. Johan Kleinans will take second, and claiming the third place spot will be Brandon Kruger as he hunts his way through the field. Fafias will finish up in fourth place. Taking the top spot thus far, waiting to come across the line, is Carl Oosthuizen, Esteban Pretorius, and Johan Blichnoot. They're still close to one another. I do suspect that Blichnoot is going to give it one last shot to try and get that pass done and dusted on Pretorius. But Blichnoot has put in a stellar effort despite going and biting the wall at the top of the Eau Rouge. And with that rear suspension damage, with a bit of error on the front taken away from that BMW, he is going to maintain a top running order and still have a chance to fight it out in the points. However, Carl Oosthuizen will further stretch that gap and make it 3 as he gets the win here tonight. So it'll be round 1 a victory, round 2 a second place, round 3 a victory, but all goes down to Pretorius, who's had a nightmare race this season. He has finished successfully below 20th. He's been out of the top 20 and now looking to take his first podium here at RaceFace.Pro, his first podium in LMU in the Lamborghini, which no one thought was going to do well here at Spa in the win. But Carl Oosthuizen comes across the line. He takes the victory for the GT3 class, and you could see the smile straight through the helmet of that BMW. Much like the whole Pretorius pit is going to go off the rails, as here comes Esteban Pretorius for the very first time. Will be coming across the line, second place here at RaceFace.Pro, and right behind him, championship chase down, is Johan Blichnoot taking third, keeping that championship fight alive. Jason Farmer will finish up in fourth place for the Griffin Sim Racing team, and from a qualifying ban into a top 5, Dion Kopp takes fifth position LaRue takes 6th, along with Dennis Gillett, Jody Sediman, Michael Van Rooyen, Dan Brown. It has been an absolute treat of note. And my oh my, Cam, what have we just witnessed here at Spa in the wait for round 3 of season 2 of the RaceFace.Pro Le Mans Ultimate Championship?
Well, as you said, Stephen, Spa has come out and delivered again phenomenally. Some wet weather racing really brought out the fiercest of battles between all of our drivers, and has really shown some of the skills there and also strategy that's been out in effect there. Specifically with the like of Chris Stalls has gone and really just shown the mastery that he has within that Peugeot, and has shown that just what he's able to do, going for a no-stop strategy, able to nurse that car all the way to the very end. It's blown my mind then how he's been able to do it. So really well done to Chris Stalls there, and also to our GT3 cars. I mean, battles up and down, some accidents here and there, unfortunately, with the likes of Grobler losing it and having to completely smash the rear end of the car there. But Pretorius taking a car that everybody has counted down and out for the championship, the Lamborghini, and has proven once again that the car is phenomenal. I mean, repeated success from the likes of Jordan Pepper there, taking the Ferrari and not winning, but getting his inaugural podium for the car there as well in the season. So really well done for our podium, as well as all the drivers sticking it out there in the horrible conditions that were given to us here at Spa-Francorchamps. So really happy to see there. But that's just my take on it, Steve. What's yours?
Well, I don't think it was horrible conditions at all. I think adding a little bit of challenge, a little bit of spice, a little bit of pace goes and changes things up. You have to play a different game in wet weather racing. However, there was some brilliant fights. We also saw the fight with Fafiers and Brandon Kruger. Unfortunately, ended up with contact between the two, but they could keep close to one another. And that is one thing with the hypercars, where you worry about aero wash affecting the cars. It did show that you can keep some close racing between the two. Unfortunately, both going for the same piece of tarmac, goes and loses out in both circumstances. So I'd wait to see how that is all going to turn out, and hopefully no hard feelings between the drivers, because it was some proper hard racing. Blick notes, I've got to say, take my hat off to. Smashes out the rear suspension and a little bit of the nose, still finishes in 3rd, still keeps the championship hopes alive to continue on the fight. Dion Kopp, brilliant run for him. Qualifying bad, back of the grid, and fought back into the top 5. And the question comes in, if he was able to qualify, where would he finish at the end of the race? This is all as it all unfolds, but we've got 7 rounds of the championship. We've just had round 3. There's still plenty more racing to come, and I can't wait to see our GT3 and Hypercar class start to really put the hammer down. And also to see those new drivers coming into the fray and fighting for that top spot. Once again, it's still open. If you at home want to come and enter, you want to be part of the Hypercar class or the GT3 class, head over to RaceFace.Pro on SimGrid, and also on our Discord. Go and chat to us. We'll get you all sorted out to come and enjoy some of the racing here on Le Mans Ultimate. But that being said, I've got to say, we got to take a look at some of our true champions as they'll be coming into the commentary box, Cam.
Yeah, well, we're going to start off as always with our GT3 car. And I'm going to lead the way. Jan Blechner, unfortunately, still getting the car back around and not able to make it to the box just yet. Hopefully, we'll be able to join us there. But I think he's just going to take the car in and have it inspected. But we're going to start off with our inaugural, the driver who has got his inaugural podium in a car that has been a bit of a surprise with the form of the Italian Raging Bull. I'm going to welcome in the likes of, I believe it's Esteban Pretorius here. Esteban, welcome to the commentary box for the very first time, and also welcome to the podium in the Raging Bull of all cars. I hope you enjoy the view. Take us through the race out there. Ooh, I think we might be having some technical difficulties here with Pretorius. We're gonna, well, for the time being, we're gonna just move on.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Now we can hear you there. Welcome, Pretorius. Okay. Welcome, Esteban.
No,
Welcome.
thank you for having me. No, it was a tough one. Very surprising to end up on pole position. I did not prepare well for this race. I had 0 expectations, so I don't know how that happened.
Well, you mentioned having zero expectations there, but you've actually shocked many drivers as well as some of the fans, and saying, "Well, we didn't expect it." I mean, the Lamborghini is a car that showed prowess during the dailies over at Sebring, and I was like, "Oh no, if you have a Lamborghini, you're going to be fine." But it turns out last week wasn't the week for you. What needed was a track that has a bit of moisture on it, and you seem to just be flying over it. You had some close battles with the likes of Blighnote, and unfortunately having a bit of a spin out there, but you clawed your way back. Was it something that you knew after qualifying you had the pace, or was it just, well, we're going to see how things go, take it piece by piece?
Yeah, no, I seem to struggle. I had the 1 lap pace for the quali, but during the race, it felt as the stint progressed, I was losing pace. So yeah, I don't know. I think Blighnout had technical difficulties in the pits. I don't know if he overfueled or what happened, because I managed to get the position back in the pits. But yeah, also congratulations to Kyle. He did a nice overcut there. And looking at the lap times after the race, I did not have the race pace. There was a lot of guys that had faster best laps than I did.
Well, you mentioned it there, and unfortunately, I can disclose that unfortunately Black had a bit of an incident going up a rouge after his pit, but really, he still put up a good fight and really brought it back there. So I'm gonna hand you over to my co-commentator here, Stephen, if he has any questions out there, if you have anything, shaking a bit of his head here.
Well, firstly, congratulations on getting your podium, and I know Jackie Pretorius, who's been cheering you on in the wet, is going to be rather happy about it. But your thoughts now, have you finally broken the camel's back and looking to turn the championship around? I mean, you've been out of the top 20 in round 1 and in round 2, but made it to second place in the GT3s around Spa. Do you think you've finally tamed the car and able to fight for a little bit further up in the championship, getting into the top 10?
I would hope so. I mean, in round 1 with Fuji, I feel I had the pace to contend for a victory overall there, but ended up having technical difficulties and not finishing the race. And then same with Sebring, unfortunately was involved in an incident on lap 1, also resulted in a DNF. So this is the first race I've actually finished. So hopefully it continues that way with the rest of the championship. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, absolutely great stuff. And Ulrich Kleinon's busy saying, well done, my fellow Eastern Cape driver. I'm guessing out there in the Eastern Cape. But before we let you go, in royal fashion here at RaceFace.Pro, we leave the floor to you to say any shout-outs out there to the virtual grandstand, shout-outs to the sponsors, the admins, your team, or family members that are cheering in from the background. The floor is yours.
No, like I said earlier, it was completely unexpected. I came in with no expectations. It's unfortunate. Meneer Kleinans couldn't attend the race. He got his first podium last week as well. Hopefully, we will see him on track next week. Yeah, and then just thank you for all the support, and then that's about it.
Absolutely well done to the likes of Ethan Pretorius taking second place in our GT3 class here tonight. But Cam, it has been a wild one, and I do see that we've got a couple of drivers joining in. We got our third place of our GT3s, Jan Blighnout, to come and have a chat to us. Mr. Blighnout, welcome to the commentary box in the BMW. Well, with a rear suspension damaged, the front a little bit worn, but chances at the championship still well alive. How are you feeling after that race?
Stephen, talent, damage, you know. Yeah, that's all I can say for now.
Well, it was still an incredible one. How was the conditions out there? It looked like at the first stage of the race, you were a little bit on the back foot, but then the BMW came into its own towards the latter part of the race. Take us through the conditions as it progressed.
Yeah, I tried to keep close to Estienne, but the dirty air messed up my tires a bit too much. So I fell back to cool them down and just figure out the brake bias to use and where to put the balance of the brakes. And after that, I just pushed and got close to him, and I don't know if I pushed him into a mistake, but I got past him. And from there on, it was just head down with a little bit of practice.
Well, it definitely worked out in your favor. Before I let you go, I'm going to pass you over to my co-commentator, Cameron de Bastos, to ask any questions he would like to after a stellar drive to hold that third place.
Well, as you said, Stephen, a phenomenal drive from you from your on there, but unfortunately, I do believe you had a bit of pace there to take it all the way to the very end, the lead. I mean, phenomenal battle between yourself and rookie podium finisher Pretorius Estienne there. So really, now with the third place, it doesn't really have a bit of a massive impact with regards to a championship, but. Do you think this, from you personally, might have a bit of a knock on that championship standing, or do you think that hope is still alive to take that win for the Omnis Gaming crew again?
I'm not going to back down from the championship fight, but this makes it a bit more difficult going forward. I would have really liked to get this victory tonight and just solid my standings. But yeah, I got out of the pit up a rouge and the game had a glitch. Porsche just went away for a split second and tried to control the car, but didn't work out in my favor.
Bit of heartbreak going on out there, but I'm gonna let you go to the team and just talk about everything that's just happened, and they just look at the damage on the car there. But Jan Buchner, congratulations on a well thought third place there, fighting it back from a bit of damage all the way to a podium there. Well done, and go enjoy the celebrations.
Cool, thank you guys.
Well, Steve, I'm going to bring in our GT3 winner in the form of Carl Oosthuizen there. Carl, you at the start seemed to be out entirely, maybe with the hopes of finishing on the podium there, but as luck would have it again, here you are on the podium, on the top, your lowest finish only being second, and winning another race here in season 2 of it. Take us through this entire race, how you experienced this.
Oh, to be honest, qualifying didn't go to plan. The session was getting wetter as it went on, so I didn't get a first lap in. I cut the top of Radeon, so from there it was all downhill. Qualified P7, and that's not where I wanted to be. The spray was very bad with the daylight. It was just like driving into white mist. It was so difficult to see the other guys. It was very difficult to see braking points. I just tried to stay out of trouble. Got a bit of damage in turn 1, but it is what it is. And yeah, I just kept carrying on. You never know what can happen. And yeah, it seems to work out.
Mention that inevitable white wall of spray in there. I mean, I recall back to my time, and I can just imagine how it must be for your side. I mean, 7th behind all those cars. How was it picking out that brake marker in order just to not avoid any further damage? I mean, you did mention turn 1, a bit of damage sustained there, but going up the Kemmel Straight, I mean, it must have been absolutely horrendous.
Well, the first time going up to, I can't remember the corner names other than the very famous 2, but the first chicane, I missed my braking marker, ran a bit deep, cold brakes, etc. Tried to rejoin. I didn't hit anyone, but you know, it was difficult. It was nerve-wracking because, I mean, if somebody takes me out, it is what it is. But I don't really want to kill anyone else. A little bit of door banging is fine, in my opinion. But yeah, it wasn't ideal. To be honest, if it can rain at night, it'll probably be a little bit better than raining during the day on LMU. You just cannot see anything.
Well, I will say don't count your chickens before the hatch, because in nighttime you have lights beaming back even worse. But yeah, I'm going to give you the floor now. You know the drill. The floor's yours. Give a shout out, challenge anybody out there. And just, yeah, floor's yours.
Yeah. Just want to shout out my mate in the Netherlands, Jeffrey Kruger. I know he's watching. Shout out to him. Shout out to my team, Racing Team Astra, and then shout out to my one of my main sponsors, another mate of mine, Comprehensive Driving Solutions, Lorenzo. Thanks for always being there when I need you for tips and tricks from learning from real life. And as for a challenge, not really, but more of an apology to Mr. LaRue. I never intend to be dirty. I'd rather, not race that way. Hard racing's fine, but I do apologize if you saw it as dirty. I do apologize. If so, you can report me. I don't mind. And I'll see everyone next week.
Well, some very nice words there, as well as an apology to a fellow driver. So, well, some good sportsmanship going out there. So, Carl, I'm going to let you go and celebrate there. But we're going to bring in the likes of our podium for our hyperclass driver, starting with our third class in the form of Brandon Kruger. Brandon, welcome to the pit. Well, welcome to the commentary box and other pits. A bit of heartbreak and gut-wrenching going out towards you there. I mean, leading the majority of the race and then having to box back-to-back. What happened there? Was the car not full all the way up? Was there a bit of miscommunication within the team? Walk us through that crucial phase that led, unfortunately, to a bit of a backwards drop within the performance.
Yes. How's it, Cameron? How's it, Stephen? Well, it was just an unfortunate pit box selection. So I'd worked out my virtual energy perfectly, but I unfortunately, instead of saying fill up my fuel with a 1.0 ratio, I went on a 0.2 ratio. So I kind of had a massive blind moment and basically took up a fifth of my virtual energy in fuel. And that basically just gave me like a few hundred milliliters when I came out the pits with 0.7 liters or 0.7 laps worth of fuel. So I think that was like 3 liters. And I then had to lift and coast. I think I made it into my pit box with like 0.1 liters left, fueled up properly, and then managed to get out again. But it was just an unfortunate pit selection, So that's what took it from me, but I'm still satisfied I finished the race with no major problems, fortunately.
Oh, well, you mentioned the amount of fuel, and that's something that me and Stephen was also talking here during the broadcast, was the amount of fuel, the difference between yourself and your closest competitor in the form of Chris Stalls. I mean, Chris Stalls was able to finish the entire race without pit boxing, and that's from a bit of fuel saving. Is that something you're going to take on board with you now, heading into the next race, in order to just go and evaluate what you're going to do in order to extend that bit of stints and still keep the pace? Or is it just going to be still flat taps till the very end and hopefully have enough of a bit of a gap built up over your competitors to minimize the damage when it comes to a pit box?
Well, it depends. Due to the wet weather, obviously you'll have a greater chance of finishing the race on one tank. But when it comes to dry the races, you're just going to have to take that splash and dash, unfortunately, especially with the Ferrari. I know Chris is very experienced. He knows how to get the necessary amount of pace out of car as well as fuel saving. Unfortunately, with my style of driving, it won't work out. So I'm going to always have to just focus on getting the appropriate amount of fuel into my car at the end of the race. Now that I have more experience, or like at least somewhat of experience, because I think this is my first refuel I've ever done. I would say I'm more prepared. I won't make the same mistake again. Good pace doesn't come that very often. I was very bad at Sebring. I just didn't have any confidence in the braking there. Here I was a lot more better with the corner exits. The Ferrari sat very nice. It was very well set up. Not bad for a dry setup with wet tires at that. But I think it will be a nice tight race come next race next week.
We did mention how the car is set up there, and the Sebring, fortunately not suiting the car well. It's a bit of a bumpy one. But we did also see quite a good battle between yourself and Fafierce there on the track until the very, very end. It's a shame how it ended there. But I'm gonna let you go to celebrate with the team and just also debrief a bit of what went wrong and what could have been changed there. But I'm going to give you the floor in order to give a bit of a shout out, to give some thanks, or just usual strat that we normally do here. The floor is yours and the mic's also yours.
Thanks, Cameron. Yeah, well done to Chris on the win. He kept me on my toes throughout the race, so well done to him. He deserves it. Well done to Blicky, my teammates, coming P3 in GT3. Unfortunate for Nathan. He sat with us, and he was doing so well. He's very new to RaceFace and racing in general, so he was doing exceptionally well, and hats off to you, Nathan. And yeah, thanks to all the sponsors. Thanks to everyone watching in the grandstands. I hope we made for an entertaining night, despite it being only 5 hypercars. But yeah, all the best and enjoy.
Some very nice words there coming from Brandon Kruger. I'm going to let you go and go celebrate the team and also just discuss everything for him tonight. But well done on a podium finish out there. Now we're going to bring in next the likes of Delta Negative's Young Kleinhans, the driver that seems to have been at the back of the pack, but at the very end does what the Delta Negative team does and pulls a rabbit out of the hat. Jan, welcome to the comms again. This time in second place after being quite far back in the field, battling out with Jean Verveers, and now sitting second right behind your teammate Chris Stolz. Take us through the race tonight there, and what didn't click tonight compared to normal pace that you have on the circuits?
Hi, good evening, guys. Look, honestly, it wasn't something that didn't click. It was just the from the get-go, we had planned on doing just a single stint without stopping. So it was just a race of management, and I knew if I was able to stay within roughly 30 seconds of the lead, that I would be able to jump them. So unfortunately, I made a bit of a mistake on, I think, that 3 or 4 where I lost about 20 seconds spinning in Stavelo, but which ultimately cost me the win. But look, it was just sort of management. Pace was there. It was just a super chill, manage the pace, manage the field race. That's what it ended up being.
Well, as you mentioned, the spin at Stavelo, it was just brought up on the replay, so that was kind of comedic and perfect timing there. But I mean, you did mention the strategy there from the start being not to box and not to do that fuel. And I mean, must say, phenomenal fuel saving from yourself as well as the team. And then it looks like Jean Verveers followed the same strategy, almost having a lap on all of you there at the very, very end in terms of fuel load. But some sneaky strategies coming out there from the Delta Negative team there. But at this stage, we won't expect anything else. I mean, you guys are pretty much can be considered a defending manufacturers or team championship here from season 1 with you and Chris sealing that victory there also. But this is also a close battle now that brings you closer into this championship fight for second so far, unless Chris messes up and then makes it even closer to that lead. But it's something that seems to become a bit of a trend with the Delta Negative team. Really, a bit of the underdog at the start with the Omnius guys getting a better jump, and then you as well as Chris just snatching it away from them at the very dying stages of the race.
Yeah, I think, look, we obviously at this point have a bit more experience than they do. It's their first season. And, to be honest, they're doing well. They're super quick. Every race so far, it may not look like it's very close in all of the races, but, it's been tough. Look, Chris, in general, the race starts at Peugeot is super slow. Just on acceleration, it's just inherently the car is really bad, just out of first gear, which is why you'll kind of see us jump him a lot. And being teammates, I try and sort of keep him ahead, to give him a fair chance. But that's kind of just inherently an issue of the Peugeot. And look, Fuji, Sebring, I think if I look back to Fuji. Brandon and all the Omnius guys, they underfueled a bit in comparison to us, which cost them at the end. Last race, they were. It was actually super close in terms of pace, but they just got into accidents, So it's been super competitive. It's really fun. It's great to have competition, and we're enjoying it.
Well, it's good to hear some good fun competition out there, but. I don't know, Stephen, if you got any questions there from your side. Shakes his head saying no, he's just entertaining the battle. He says there's some good stuff going on out there. But I'm going to give the mic over towards you, Jan, and give a shout out, lay down a challenge, or just say what's on your heart. Floor's yours. because say what you want, just keep it friendly.
I guess as always, thanks to everyone making it happen, the sponsors, you guys in commentary, Dalton Negative, the team, we're doing super well. We'll keep going, and it's nice having inter-team competition, which pushes us to be better. But yeah, for the rest of the guys, thanks for a good race. Thanks for joining, and hopefully we start seeing some more hypercars on the grid at some point. It's not that hard, boys.
But yeah, unfortunately, as you said, a good challenge out there for the hypercars, really going out there and drive a bit more. But yeah, I'm going to let you go, have a debrief, go celebrate with the team, and then I'm going to keep your teammate a bit longer here in order to just pressurize him for being the fastest and then giving you a bit more time in the spotlight. But yeah, I'm going to go and enjoy it. And yeah, well done on a podium there at second place finish out here in a very wet Spa-Francorchamps.
Cheers, guys.
Now, as we do that, I'm going to bring in the likes of Chris Tolls and saying, well done, Chris, on a phenomenal finish out there tonight. I mean, you had the podium, well, you had the pole position start, you pushed it till the very, very end, and then it just looked like strategy again beat the likes of Brandon Krug. I mean, do you have Hannah from Red Bull Racing on the pit wall there, just talking into your ear saying, listen, this is exactly what we're going to do, and they're going to fall directly for this trap, and we're going to get you to the very, very end?
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. Yeah, I was really happy with the pole lap. I got it out on the first lap. I think the conditions got a bit worse after that, so it couldn't improve. So I was happy to just have a clean lap on the first attempt. And yeah, then from the beginning, we thought maybe it's possible to not have to do a pit stop, but that was contingent on the fact that we do 221s. So when Brandon got me off the start, I knew immediately like it's fuel saving time. So I went +2 on the lap counter and immediately just went into fuel saving mode, trying to keep the gap not too, don't let it grow too much and just manage everything. And then yeah, towards the end it got a bit dicey because in the middle of the race the pace came down a lot. Like I think I did like a 218 and it started looking like at this pace it won't even be possible. So I was then a bit worried, but then I should have just kept on saving, but I didn't. And then when the pace got worse again, I started saving again, and and then it was just enough. I came to pit and accidentally only put in 0.5% of virtual energy, so that didn't really help my case. So I had to go really slow on that last lap. But luckily, I crossed the line with I think 0.1% energy left. So yeah.
Well, you kind of just blew my mind because I thought that you were pulling a no stop there and then you go and just did a very small splash at the very end, but it really went onto you played it well to your advantage there. So really well done to you and your team there. And I think it's a bit of a growing theme here. I mean, you get the great qualifying position, you lose it, and then you claw your way back and then absolutely smash it to the very, very end. So it's a bit something that becomes competitive.
I'd try and not lose it instead. That would be better. Just to keep the pole position and drive off into the sunset. That's obviously what you want in an ideal scenario. But yeah, I mean, I can't complain to get the win. So yeah.
Do you think that this is something that the Peugeot team needs to take into consideration? I mean, your team had already mentioned the Peugeot absolutely is sluggish coming off of the start line. So it's really something that you need to, I think, might work.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that can be done. Unfortunately, I've tried a lot of different ways to get the car started, and also there's another Peugeot driver, international driver, who also has the same issues, and he's really quick. So yeah, I think it's just unfortunately just a characteristic of the car. It just struggles a bit on corner exits. Not just the start, it's all corner exits. It's a little bit sluggish to get going, but then it gets decent acceleration after that. But then after that, you've got the low top speed again. So it's a tricky car because you have to drive it a bit different to the other cars, but it's really quick in the corners, and I feel like I am trying to just capitalize on the car strengths there.
Well, you did mention what you're trying to capitalize on, but I'm going to give you the floor now to say goodbye. Well, say goodbye, to give a shout out to anybody out in Grandstand, and also just maybe a bit of a challenge laying down there as we head over to our next round, which is Lusail Circuit all the way in Qatar, a new one for us. But I'm going to give you the mic and the floor to say anything, any messages you want to leave out there in the world of RaceFace.Pro.
Oh, thanks, Cameron. Yeah, just want to say thank you to everyone who's supporting us, and thank you to my teammates for always pushing me, and of course you guys doing the commentary. It's really nice to have the stream and watch it next day, and yeah, it's really great. And then yeah, I mean, just want to invite people to come try the hypercars. We're a small grid at the moment, but I'd like to see it grow, and yeah, come show us what you got.
A challenge laying down there by our championship leader, Chris Stolz, at this point in time, and really hope to see more hypercars out there. But Chris, I'm going to let you go celebrate with your team, and we will catch you again next week at Lusail Circuit all the way in very dry Qatar.
Thanks.
Well, Stephen, that brings us to the very, very end of our broadcast here on the RaceFace.Pro channel here for our LMU Season 2 Championship. And I must say that it's been a race until a race that can't be really forgotten. It brought us everything from entertainment, heart and mouth moments, edge of seat entertainment, as well as some very close battles there. But as I say goodnight now here for us all here at RaceFace.Pro, I want to challenge everybody again. It's been repeated by our drivers out here in the commentary box that really challenge people to come join us here at RaceFace.Pro on the grid for a hyperclass car. It's definitely something that we all really want to see you guys drive, and it's also very fun, as you can see some very close battles out there tonight. But I am going to say farewell for us here at the very wet Spa-Francorchamps. But this is not the end for the week, as tomorrow we do have some very good, some more races coming up all the way here, as we have our ACC racing, our Pro and Pro-Am stream being broadcasted with with commentary tomorrow, and then also a non-commentary stream for our ACC Gold and Silver lobby to bring some action as well as highlight some of the talent that we have in our other service there. So be mindful, be more than welcome to join us there and just see which one of the streams is for them it's going to be out there for tonight, with the comps being on our Pro and Pro-Am class, and then also non-commentary stream for our Gold and Silver. But from my side, and Stephen Koenig, and everybody from TSC Production, I want to say thank everybody for joining us out here on, in a very wet Spa-Francorchamps, and then we'll see you all next week at in Qatar and Lusail in the desert, where we're going to heading to a new circuit, a circuit that has been recently released on LMU, and then also new for many of our drivers. But from the RaceFace.Pro admins, as well as our thanks to our sponsors, e.g. SBR, Rhino Utility, Virtual Motorhead, and Simulator Cave, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us, and then also thank you again to our sponsors for allowing us to do such showcase such phenomenal talents out here in RaceFace.Pro. But join us on Discord, reach out to us, and we'll be able to assist you if you want to come join us here. Otherwise, just reach out. Tell us what your favorite moment is down in the comment section. Hit that subscribe and also the like button if you enjoyed what you're seeing out here. And don't forget to join us all out here. From myself, Cameron Bastos, Stephen Koenig, and everybody at TSC Production, I want to say thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next week at Lusail for our next round of LMU, or even tomorrow for our ACC stream. Good night, everybody.